Hello, beautiful community. This is going to be a quick video about the ungodly panic in Z radical circles that's broken out in Russia. But before that, let me just spend 1 minute saying something general about the business of giving Ukraine longer range missiles. This is a kind of political understanding I think is helpful. And it has two components. First, is always going to be in practice the case that we don't get to guide what Ukraine does with weapons we give it as much as we think or would like. That's the first bit. Second bit, Ukraine itself can't guide, right? Can't guarantee what it will do with weapons we give it as much as it would like, because there are certain kinds of natural momentums to different types of escalation. So where am I going with this? These two heuristics are helpful in understanding that the war will manifest increasingly on Russian soil in 2023. We've talked about this several times, but this is a very important point. This pattern will keep on escalating. And as it escalates, it's important to not overly ethicize it, because there's going to be people debating proportionality and so on. No. Ukraine's going to do whatever it thinks serves its interests of survival and liberation of territory. And a part of that project is going to be creating disturbances on Russian soil, bringing the war to Russian soil. Now, to our topic now. So, the degree of panic was so comical that, even though we're talking about Russia's self-immolation and the lives of Ukrainians being uprooted, destroyed in this tragedy, and indeed we're talking about further global threats of escalation. Despite this, I did find myself laughing out loud once or twice when I was reading in particular Mr. Dugin's Telegram channel, where he went through a series of extraordinary contortions in a period of 24 hours, from the counteroffensive has begun to it hasn't begun but it's in the process of beginning, to it isn't beginning but it is about to begin, and it isn't even about to begin but something is about to begin. And prayers were being circulated on the Telegram channels, wishing well for the Russian military. So what is going on? Because these folks were hyperventilating until the Russian Ministry of Defense came in and told them to shut up, as though the Kremlin was being taken over by NATO. And I think there are two really important points to understand. So let's start with the first one, and it is so counterintuitive, even though I have mentioned it from time to time, that it's really rather shocking to hear it. But people are afraid that NATO is going to come for them. You might say, well, they're afraid that NATO is going to, send troops into Ukraine and kick Russia out of Ukraine? No. They're afraid that NATO will come to get Moscow. And that potentially the Putin regime won't be able to protect itself properly, won't be able to use nuclear weapons in a timely fashion, and so on. And this is not a fear that is entirely coherent, because they're not going to tell you exactly how NATO is going to do that, but that fear is absolutely there. And it was actually there right from the beginning of the war, because on February 25th, on February 24th indeed, because the Russians began the invasion in the early hours of the morning, some people in Moscow and in Petersburg were saying, whoa, is NATO going to launch rockets at us now? So there is this extraordinary disregard of Ukrainian agency. There's a sense that Russia is at war with NATO, and NATO could escalate at any time and launch a land invasion of Russia. So that fear, even though it is not very practically articulated, like how's NATO going to do this? How would this even start? But even though it's not very practically articulated, it is there in a kind of a primal way. And so there is this feeling, well, if we don't take Kiev, they're going to take Moscow. Right. So that's one pillar of that kind of panic. And the second pill is really very important to understand, and that's about the Russian military potentially experiencing some kind of catastrophic defeat that is self-inflicted. Because you might think, what are these people doing panicking? If you take the temperature of what the preponderant opinion among Western military experts is, the expectations are conservative about Ukraine's counteroffensive, right? A great success from Ukraine, a situation where Ukraine breaks the land bridge to Crimea, would surpass by far what one gleans from the sort of balance of expectations among Western military experts. So why are these Russians panicking so much, these Z radicals? So yes, they're worried about Ukraine advancing successfully, and more successfully than they expect or they might like. But this is a different kind of worry. This is a worry about some kind of catastrophic, self-inflicted collapse in the Russian military. That might be to do with some kind of organizational fracture, or with some kind of sort of a mass fleeing or mass mutiny. So some kind of divisiveness, morale-driven disaster that is going to be forced but not caused by Ukraine's success. So these are two rather surprising but stunningly real reasons for the panic. And I think that's all I've got for today. Lots of love, and I'll be with you soon.